A survey of 107 college students was taken to determine the musical styles they liked. 42 students listened to rock, 45 students listened to classical, 47 students listened to jazz, 18 students listened to rock and jazz, 21 students listened to rock and classical, 21 students listened to classical and jazz, 6 students listened to all three musical styles. Construct a Venn diagram to determine the cardinality for each region. Use the completed Venn diagram to answer the following questions. How many listen to only rock music? How many listen to classical and jazz but not rock? How many listen to classical or jazz but not rock? The first thing that we need to do is go ahead and draw a Venn diagram. And this is my Venn diagram. So I want to go ahead and make sure that I understand what cardinality means. Cardinality means the number of elements in a particular set. And we're going to be dealing with different types of sets here. We're going to be looking at unions, and we're going to be looking at intersections, and then we're going to be looking at the individual sets. So I'm going to go ahead and use a color code for this, and we will let R in red be rock, and we will let light blue be classical, and then jazz will be in purple. So let's establish the cardinalities of sets. First, let's understand that this right here, 107 college students, that is the cardinality of the universal set. So everything that will be contained in this rectangle must sum to 107. The cardinality for this one, n of r, will be equal to 42. Cardinality for the next one, classical, n of c, will be equal to 45. And then finally, the cardinality for jazz will be equal to 47. Then we're going to look at each one of these remaining statements and understand what sets we're talking about. This one says 18 students listen to rock and jazz. Since we have an and there, that's going to be an intersection. So we're looking at the cardinality, or the number, of R intersect J, which will be equal to 18. Next, we look at 21 students listen to rock and classical. So we will go ahead and write that as the cardinality, or the number, of rock intersect classical. And that value will be equal to 21. We have the same thing. 21 students listen to classical and jazz. So that's classical intersect jazz. And as I said, that's going to be equal to 21 also. And then finally, 6 students listen to all three musical styles. That's the intersection of all three sets. So we would write it as n of, and then we're going to have the intersection of rock, classical, and jazz. Now that we've established these cardinalities, we're going to go ahead and begin to fill in our Venn diagram. And I'm going to suggest that you start at the bottom of this list, which happens to be the very center of the intersection of circles. And that means that I'm going to place 6 right here in the center where all three circles intersect. Then I'm going to move up to the next statement, which is 21 students listen to classical and jazz. Now, as I said, that's the intersection of classical and jazz. So what is classical, and where's classical and where is jazz? Well, remember, this is your rock circle, this is your classical circle, and this is your jazz circle. Therefore, the intersection of classical and jazz is going to occur in this region right here. But notice that I've already got 6 students accounted for in this particular region. So what we will do is we'll take 21 and subtract 6 and have 15. So we'll place 15 right here. We'll move up to the next one. Remember, this was our second step. Our third step will be to deal with 21 students listen to rock and classical, which is going to be this region right here. This is the intersection between rock and classical. Notice once again that I already have 6 students accounted for, so I will once again subtract 6 from 21 and get 15, and I will place 15 in this region. Then we'll move on to the next intersection. This is our fourth step. 18 students listen to rock and jazz. This is going to be the intersection of rock and jazz. Once again, I have 6 students accounted for, so we subtract 6 from 18, and we have 12, and we place 12 in this region. Now we can begin to fill in the rock, classical, and jazz only. So we go to our next statement, which is going to be 47 students listen to jazz. Well, 47 students listen to jazz. That's this entire circle right here. And so notice that I already have 12, 6, and 15 students accounted for. So this will be 47 students total, and we'll subtract the following sum of students that are already accounted for in this particular diagram. And that will be equal to 14 students. And so I'll place that down here in this remaining available space. Then we'll move on to the next one. And that's going to be the fact that there are 45 students total that listen to classical music. And this is the circle for classical. But once again, notice that I already have students accounted for. So we'll take 45 and we will subtract the following sum, 15 plus 6 plus 15, which is 9 students. And I'll place the 9 right in here. Then finally, we're going to look at rock. 42 students listen to rock, and that's this circle right in here that I've just highlighted. Once again, we have 12, 6, and 15 students accounted for. So 42 minus 15 plus 6 plus 12 equals 9 also. So I'll place that value right here. And now we've completed the Venn diagram. So then we move on to answering the questions. The first question: how many students listen to only rock music? Well, we know that. So the next question, part B, states how many listen to classical and jazz but not rock? The key is the "and" here. That means that they are listening to both classical and jazz, but they are ignoring rock. The intersection between classical and jazz, as we've shown before, is this region here. But unfortunately, when I look at this region right here, this includes rock, so I will not look at that. I'm only going to look at the region that is classical and jazz but does not contain rock, which will be this one. Therefore, the answer would simply be 15. Next, we will go ahead and look at part C, which says how many listen to classical or jazz but not rock? That's going to be a union because of this "or." That means that they will listen to either classical, jazz, or both, but not rock. So this is classical only. This is classical and jazz. And this is jazz only. If I add these three values, I have how many students listen to classical or jazz but not rock, which will be 38. Alright, so then the next question, part D, how many listen to music in exactly one of the musical styles? Now, when we look at that one, we say exactly one of the musical styles. So, when I think about that one, I'm going to consider the following. This is exactly a musical style. There are 9 that listen to only rock. There are 9 that listen to only classical. And there are 14 that listen to only jazz. So that means that I'm going to add all of those values, 9 plus 9 plus 14, which will yield 32. So there are 32 students that listen to exactly one musical style. The next question, how many listen to music in exactly 2 of the musical styles? And when I look at this one, we are going to take into account the regions where there's overlap of 2 styles but not 3. So this 15 right here would be that they listen to rock and classical. That's exactly 2 styles. This would be that 12 students listen to rock and jazz, 2 musical styles. And this would be 15 students that listen to rock and classical and jazz, 2 styles. Add these 3 together and we end up with 42. And then finally we have how many did not listen to any of the musical styles. Now remember, the universal set was equal to 107. We have that right here. And with all of the numbers that I have inside these circles, I could have easily filled out this number out here in the rectangle, which would have been the number of students who do not listen to either rock, classical, or jazz. And so that's what I'm going to do now. We're going to subtract the sum of these numbers from 107 in order to get our answer. So I have 107 minus the sum of 9, 9, 14, 15, 15, 12, and 6. When I calculate this, I will get a value of 27. The 27 would go here, and that is going to represent the number of students who do not listen to any of those 3 musical styles, and that would be 27. And now we have completed our Venn diagram.